All right, so here's our objective today. How many of you have been out working with a client? Maybe you have showed 3, 5 houses to them, and throughout that time, they find themselves wandering into an open house, okay? And they end up buying the house with the agent that's sitting there rather than buying it from you, who've invested all this time and energy working with them, okay? Or better yet, maybe you have been out and perhaps been working with a client, and then they walk in or stumble into a new home sales center and end up buying a home without you. Or I'm sure we can all relate to this, that you've been out, you've been working with this client forever, and they just don't get it. They keep writing offers that just are not going to get the house, especially in a highly competitive market like we're in right now, right? So how do we deal with this? How do we establish the rules of the game up front with a buyer? Now, this isn't just first-time buyers. This is somebody that's been through this process once, twice, 3 times, or more, because here's the deal. We all know this, that the real estate market we're in right now, 2017, late spring 2017, it's absolutely insanity, okay? We are dealing with the seller's market in most of the markets Easy Street and Highgarden are in. So the challenge that we face is, how do we educate buyers up front and deprogram what they've picked up on Zillow, what they've been picking up watching HGTV for the last 3 to 5 years? What's our strategy to do that so you don't find yourself writing poor offers? Okay, we just had an agent this past weekend, believe it or not, where his client called Sunday night at 9:30 and had been incredibly frustrated. Their previous agent had shown them 33 houses, right? 33 houses, written 5 offers, and then lost all 5. Now they're blaming the agent, not themselves, for writing challenging offers. So they're ready to switch it up. They call 3 different real estate agents. We find this out after the fact. And a member of my team, Steven, takes a call 9:30 on a Sunday, is very responsive, shares one property with him, goes out and shows that one house, gets the sale. And this other agent unfortunately loses out on a sale because he got fired because he didn't set expectations appropriately, okay? There's no such thing as a bad client. There's only bad salespeople, okay? And that's a tough pill to swallow sometimes, okay? Because if we don't get this client on paper, we don't get paid. And that's our responsibility to set those expectations. Remember, okay, a great communicator, it is the responsibility of a great communicator, rather, to communicate the message so the client absorbs it, so they take it in. It's not the client's responsibility to take in this message. So that's what today's about. Today is about going through and establishing, how do we set these rules up? How do we anchor in an expectation of what is a good offer, what is a bad offer, or better yet, what's a good deal and what's a bad deal? So I'm going to walk you through a step-by-step strategy. This is a strategy I've been using for years and years and years. It's a buyer's presentation I stole from an agent that was absolutely magic on the sit. Okay? I watched this guy come into a new home sales center, go through this hour-long presentation, okay, 45 minutes, whatever you want to call it, okay, and literally these people trusted him implicitly. They were willing to do whatever this guy told them to do because he took the time up front to slow his roll, communicate stuff that they didn't know yet, and now they trust him, okay? And that's where our value as real estate agents, in my opinion, lies today, okay? Unlike 10 years ago when our value was emailing out lists of houses because clients didn't have access to Zillow or Trulia or Realtor.com or any of the other 9,000 websites out there, okay? Our value then was indeed sharing houses and finding the right home for people. But today that's changed, because what's different about today versus 10 years ago? Well, it's simple. It's access. They have access to literally all the same information we do. It's our job to help them discover what they don't know that they don't know. Hey, follow that real quick. What they don't know that they don't know, to help them realize, wow, there's a lot more to this that maybe I've not considered. Perhaps I still need to talk to somebody that does this every day. Very important things that I have to get across, and that's right here. Okay, what is our value to this buyer? Okay, meaning, what is our value? What's going to make us stand apart from the 6 other agents that they're talking to on the phone statistically, and the 2 other agents that they're meeting in person statistically? What makes me different? We have to help that buyer discover what is that difference. Okay, second thing we're going to cover today is, where are we losing opportunities? Okay, we talked about a few of them just a minute ago. New homes, open houses, maybe foreclosures perhaps. Okay, where are we losing opportunities after we've invested all this time and work? Where are we losing people to where, just like the example I shared a few minutes ago. Okay, this guy had showed 33 houses, wrote 5 offers, and did not get paid. Okay, or lastly, what's our role in this? What are the rules of real estate? Okay, it is not the buyer's job to know how we get paid. It is our responsibility to communicate that to them. So again, full transparency. That's a word that's a buzzword in the market now, transparency. Everybody wants it, so let's give it to them. Let's tell them how this process of being a real estate agent works. So again, they don't call the agent with their sign in the yard, etc. So what I'm going to go through is my buyer's presentation. Okay, I've got a varied version of this depending on, again, which buyer am I working with. Okay, am I working with a first-time buyer? If I am, I'm literally printing this item out that you see on the screen right now. I'm going through it step by step by step with them, because to a first-time buyer, and we talk about this in training, to a first-time buyer, our value is in helping them discover the process and helping them understand what are we getting ourselves into. Somebody that's moving up or moving down, our value is a little bit different. They don't need us to tell them that they're going to have to write an earnest money check or that they're going to need to do a home inspection perhaps. Okay, but maybe our value is in helping them discover that perhaps there's a different loan option than what they were considering. And maybe they don't have, they think they don't have enough equity in their house to be able to buy that next house. Okay? How do we help them discover that versus just telling them what to do? Because this just didn't show of hands. Who likes taking advice from people they don't know real well? Not a lot of people, right? So how do we help them discover a different solution rather than telling them what to do or saying, hey, I'm gonna have my lender call you and we'll see what we can put together for you, right? So that's what we're going to discuss today. So I've got a varied version. I'm going to go through all this. I'm going to fly through it today. There's going to be a ton of questions that come up later, but reach out to me or we'll coordinate a time to get together. So as we get started, when I first meet with a client, okay, one of the first questions I ask them, and oftentimes this even comes up on that initial phone call, but one of the first questions I want to get across is, hey, have you ever worked with a real estate agent before? Hey, if they're a first-time buyer, this is critical. Okay, or if they bought and sold before, why aren't they using the agent that they used before? Maybe they had a bad experience, just like the example I just gave you. Okay, or maybe they had a good experience and they completely forgot this guy's name. Okay, we did referral calls 2 nights ago here in the office, right? And one of our agents has been here almost 10 years now, calls a client. Hey, he was super, super worried to call him because it's been since literally 2006 since he talked to this person. Like, come on, we just have to make the call, reintroduce yourself. Did you do a good job? Mike says, yes, of course I did a good job. They were real happy at the end of the process, but he hadn't talked to them since literally the day they closed on the house. So he calls him last night. This person, fortunately still had the same cell phone number. However, they had already bought another house because they're like, oh, Mike, I'm so glad you called. How you doing? We just simply lost your number. That's a lost opportunity, right? Because we didn't have a plan. We didn't follow back up with people, and they just simply, it's not their job to remember who we are. People have enough going on in their lives. Okay, so when I'm working with a client, I want to find out what went right, what went wrong, what was their experience working with a real estate agent, so I know what to do and what not to do. They're like, oh yeah, she never got back to me. All right, well, what's getting back to you mean? Is their expectation within hours, or is it by the end of the business day, or is it I expect a text message back within 5 minutes after I send it to you? Okay, it's no surprise that people need that quick communication. Okay, and we have to understand that that's our responsibility. The other question I like to ask really before I get started is, so Mike, as you're on your way here to see this house today, what any questions, fears, or hesitations do you have about taking that next step to get into a house? Okay, and oftentimes this is going to be a recap of the phone call that we had, that they're going to share with me what hurdles do I need to help them cross. Maybe that's, we're still not quite sure we have good enough credit, or we're not sure that we have saved enough for a down payment yet. We heard we had to put 20% down, or we're not sure we can get into that next house because we see everything selling so fast and we have this other house we need to deal with. Okay, so I want to understand what those real objections are going in so I can make darn sure that I address them in our time together. And again, this can be a 15-minute conversation standing around a kitchen island, or it can be a 30, 45 minute sit down at Starbucks or your office meeting with a first-time buyer. So first things first, we need to uncover what do they know. Okay, what's market research told them? We have to set in stone that we can help them out with more than just what they see on the MLS or what they see on Zillow. Okay, because not all homes are on Zillow, not all homes are on the MLS, right? Okay, anybody in this market worked with somebody that ended up buying a for sale by owner lately? Okay, I'm working with 3 people right now that have bought for sale by owners where I'm getting the opportunity to represent them. However, those homes are not on the MLS. So it's my job to communicate that, look, as a real estate professional, I see 80 houses a week. I know what's out there on the market. Okay, not only am I going to be looking through options for you that are online, because you're already doing that, right? You don't need somebody else emailing you a bunch of houses. It's my job to help you sort and go through everything that's there and make sure that you're aware of every single option that's available to you. So as an example, that might be a resale home that's already on the market. That may be an expired listing where they had their house on the market last fall. It's no longer on the market because they were frustrated and just decided to stay put. It might be a brand new home, perhaps building a brand new home. That's a huge one. So many agents lose opportunities to. Or maybe it's a foreclosure. Okay? A lot of buyers in the marketplace don't know that we can help them with that. They don't know that we can help them with foreclosures or that we can help them with brand new homes. It's our job to take the initiative and put new options in front of people. So I need to set that in stone. So any home that you're out there looking at, any home that may possibly be for sale, you just simply drive by it. You need to let me know because that's my job. My average client looks at 5 houses before they find the right one. And oftentimes the very first home I take them to is the house they end up buying. Why is that? Because I'm here to listen to what's important to you and take you right to the homes that fit your budget, that meet your lifestyle needs, and are located exactly where you want them to be. That's my job. I always, when I'm meeting with somebody, I use the analogy, look, when you go out to a restaurant, you order a steak medium, you expect the waiter or waitress to bring you a steak medium, right? Not a lobster tail and shrimp, and then, oh shoot, sorry I didn't get that right. Let me go back and do some more homework for you. Okay, it's a silly analogy, but that's the job. I need to let them know that if I'm showing you more than 5 houses, I'm not doing my job by listening to you. Okay? And it's also okay to go ahead and buy the very first house I take yet, because here's the thing. You've been online looking at homes for how long? Okay, this is me asking them a question. You've been online looking at homes for how long at this point? 6 months? 3 months? It's literally comical because one of them inevitably is going to say, oh yeah, especially her, or especially him. He's on Zillow every single night. Okay, but here's the thing. They do know what the market's doing. Okay, so I have to set in stone that it's okay to literally buy the first house that you see, because what happens if they do buy the first house they see, they go tell mom and dad, and now mom and dad's, oh my gosh, no, you have to keep your options open. You don't want to buy the first thing you see. I have to tell them how to combat that objection that's going to come up. And I do that by saying, look, you know what's on the market. You've been looking at homes, 50 homes a night, right? You've got virtual tours. They've got the little walkthrough tours where you can even look up, look down, look to the side. You've got all this technology that literally lets you see everything about every house before you even walk into it. You're just simply walking into it just to make sure that it's the right fit. Okay? But if I don't set that expectation, inevitably that's what's going to happen. Is mom or dad or somebody's going to get in their ear and say, oh my gosh, you got to keep those options open. Okay? And who likes to deal with I got to keep my options open client? Not too much. Okay? So I'm going to set that expectation that I know what's out there. I've done all the research. I know exactly what's available in the marketplace, and it's my job to take you right to the best homes first. Okay? And where this is so important is because who likes showing 30 houses? That is ridiculous. It takes literally 30 plus minutes to show a house, including drive time to and from. Okay, so save yourself some time. Set expectations about what your role is up front. Okay. Secondly, how do we navigate the maze of homeownership? Okay, where are we losing opportunities at? Okay, simple analogy that I use, and I'm going to fly through this one here, is look, Mike, at the end of the day, you could, without a doubt in my mind, you could drive from downtown Indianapolis to downtown Manhattan, Times Square, without a map, without a GPS, right? You may get lost. You may find yourself in an area of the country that you don't want to be in. You may take a detour. Maybe it takes you 18 hours instead of the 12 hours it should take you, but you could inevitably find your way there, right? Well, buying a house is really the same. Okay, there's not a doubt in my mind. Okay, you're a smart guy. There's not a doubt in my mind you could buy a house figure out exactly what to do by watching some YouTube videos, going online, doing some research. You can figure it out. Maybe you make a stumbling error, maybe you forget to order an appraisal, or maybe you forget to order a septic inspection when you needed it, or a sewer cleanout inspection, okay? But you could probably figure it out. I'm your GPS. I'm gonna get you from where we are right now to exactly where you wanna be without hitting those detours, okay? Without running into roadblocks that you were not expecting, because who likes to write a check for things that they weren't expecting? That's my job as your agent. I'm your GPS. I'm gonna get you from where we are to exactly where you wanna go in the shortest amount of time possible, avoiding all those critical roadblocks, saving you time and saving you money, okay? And lastly, okay, when you see a sign in the yard, okay, you're out driving around on a Sunday afternoon, you see a house that looks great, it's a community you've been keeping your eye on for a little while. What do you do when you see a house that's got a RE/MAX sign in the yard? What do you do next? Okay? What happens if you call that agent with their sign in the yard? Okay? I have to tell them this story because if I don't, again, establish those rules, is it my fault or their fault if they go ahead and buy that house with that agent? It's absolutely my fault, okay? Because I didn't set the rules of the game up front. Okay, so I have to tell them, look, let me ask you a question. So Kimberly, let me ask you a question here. Okay, you are out and about, you're driving around, you see a house, RE/MAX sign in the yard. Okay, are you aware that that sign in the yard, what it represents to the seller of that home? Okay, what that sign actually represents is that that seller of that home and that agent have signed an agreement to do two very important things. Number one is to represent that client's best interest. What's that mean? That means everything that they know that can help that seller get as much money as possible, that is gonna give that seller an advantage through the negotiation process and setting those terms. Okay, at that point, it's gonna, hey Robert, what's up, man? Okay, at that point, excuse me, I lost my train of thought, but no, at that point though, if you call that seller, or I'm sorry, the agent with their sign in the yard, if you call them, how are they in turn going to help you as a buyer get the very best deal possible and at the same point in time represent your best interest? Okay, it's very difficult in my opinion, as me talking to the client, it's very difficult in my opinion to represent the best interests of two people in the same transactions. That's where I come in. I get paid by the builder of new homes. It's part of the marketing budget. It doesn't cost you a dime extra for me to help you buy a new home. In fact, oftentimes I can help you get a better deal. More on that in a minute. But with that resale example here, that agent is also signed in that agreement to pay a real estate commission. Okay? And if you call that agent and they help you, good day for that agent, he just got a double payday, he or she. Okay? But there is already a real estate fee that's been negotiated in, so it doesn't cost you a dime extra for me to help you out through that process. Okay? Now the biggest thing is, all this being said, what questions do you have about what my value is? Cool. Now at this point, a lot of people ask, all right, so Ryan, what's the catch? What do you cost? Well, believe it or not, my services to you as a buyer really only cost you $200. Okay, that's our company transaction fee. This is where I introduce that transaction fee. Okay, and so, but here's the best part. Oftentimes I can even get that negotiated to have the seller or the builder pay that on your behalf. So in essence, my services to you don't cost you a dime. Okay, any questions on this? Cool. Let me pause it real quick. And somebody can, we're just, so this first page is literally the most important part of the entire conversation. Whether you're sitting down with them at Starbucks, whether you're meeting them at a house, for any buyer, any situation, this is the most important part of the conversation. If you take anything away from today, take this away. Okay? You have to have this conversation with them. It doesn't have to be in this order. It doesn't have to be super formal, but you have to establish what your role is, that you know what the market is, and you're not just going to be that same agent emailing them 50 houses, that when you send them something, they better look at it because it's exactly what they told you they wanted. Okay? You help them understand where you may lose opportunities with new homes, foreclosures, FSBOs, etc. Okay? How you help them navigate that maze, and most importantly, how you get paid. Okay, nobody likes to talk about money, but it's super critical to set that expectation, because guess what? Just like the example I shared a few minutes ago, boy, you don't want to ever find yourself in a situation where you showed 10, 15, 20, 30 houses and then they end up going with somebody else, because that sucks. That's a lot of time, a lot of effort invested then in turn not making a dime. So if you take anything away from today, take this away, please. All right, so we're going to move on ahead here. I'm going to cover, okay, what are some of the other expectations that we need to set? Where are other opportunities to build value when we're working with a client? All right, so this is a step that I really enjoy taking with people because I feel it really separates me as a real estate agent from a lot of other real estate agents. Okay, when it comes to financing, I believe it is our responsibility to understand completely what the world of finance has to offer, because question, do you get to help them buy a house if you can't find them money? Maybe they're self-employed, right? And they've got a unique situation, but they got great credit score, but they write everything off. What options are available? What lender might have a program that fits that? Or maybe they don't have a credit score, literally no score at all, but they've got some money in the bank. What are you doing with that client? Okay, it is our responsibility to help find them money. Okay, so I go through with them the generalizations of, what is an FHA versus a VA loan? Okay, what are the pros and cons? What is a conventional loan? Okay, what are some outside the box loan programs? Are there any grant programs available to them? Because again, who likes to be told what to do? Nobody, right? So, and most lenders or most real estate agents say, hey, I'm gonna have my lender call you and let's see what we can do to get you pre-approved, because we've got to get pre-approved before we go out and look at a house. Okay, if they've heard that once, they've heard it 40 times, I promise you, because that's what everybody's saying on the phone. How do you be different? How do you ask a question rather than telling them that that's what what they need to do? Perhaps you ask them a question like, you know what? So Robert, hey, you've done a lot of research. You've been looking around online. Question: what's your research told you as far as what is the best loan program that fits your needs? Walk me through it. Okay. And now they're generally going to say, I know we got to put 20% down, or we really haven't looked at that. Okay, because looking for a loan option is not fun and sexy. Looking for houses is fun and sexy. That's what HGTV is selling. They're not selling, find the best loan program or refinance your house program. They're not selling that stuff because that's not fun. The average person that's buying a house literally spends less than 30 minutes researching which loan's best for them. And this is what they're writing checks for. Okay, so as an agent, I have an enormous opportunity or window to build value where nobody else is taking the time, because every other single real estate agent out there is saying, I might have my lender call you, he or she's super awesome, they're gonna get you the very best deal, they're gonna get you the best rate, you definitely need to work with them, I'll have them call you sometime in the next few days. Great, you and everybody else just got done saying that. Okay, so if I can separate myself, if I can show them the differences and I can show them what different options look like and let them choose which loan program's the best, then I get to say something like this. Cool, based on that, I work with 6 different lenders that all specialize in a different form of finance. And based on where you're telling me you're at, based on your credit score, based on what you'd like to put in for a down payment, based on how your income structure works, I think we need to work with XYZ lender at XYZ company. In truth, I only work with 2 lenders. I work with 2 lenders, and guess what? I know that those 2 lenders are going to get the job done. And I'm able to capture almost 80% of my buyer business with 2 lenders. The beauty in that is, guess what? Now I get to have working relationships with people that I know work as hard as I do, and that are going to deliver on what they say, and we're not going to have problems 2 days prior to closing. Okay? That gives me enormous peace as a buyer's agent. But guess what? I'm not going to be having to call some dude at some local branch bank that doesn't work on Saturday and Sunday, and my client needs a pre-approval right now. I don't have to deal with that now because I'm working with people that work as hard as I do and that I know are going to deliver on what they say. That is peace of mind as a real estate agent and will make your life infinitely easier. Okay, so that's one area where we have to build value. Okay, I also, like the slide here shows, I also literally take them through and show them what they can qualify for. And I tell them a story. I was working with a client, literally about 2-3 months ago, where they went into their local bank, said we got approved for $150,000. So they started going out looking at $150,000 houses. They didn't take the time to establish what is their budget and what that $150,000 house actually represents as far as out-of-pocket money. Okay, so in this situation, they go out and they find their $150,000 house, and then they ask, well, what's my payment going to be? Oh wait, no, we want a payment closer to $750. We don't want to be writing a check for $1050. We can't afford that. Now they're heartbroken, and now you're going down and you're showing houses at 120. And do homes at 120 compared to $150? Not at all. So your job just got infinitely harder. So I take a step and I show them based on what they want to pay, what their what their comfort zone is, what that means from a total purchase price standpoint. And this is the beauty of this. Now I get this to literally hold them to it. How many of you have literally had clients texting you homes where they say they want to be at 150, but now they're texting you homes for $175
right.
or 180? Happens all the time, right? So here's my conversation. Here's where I really anchor this in and I eliminate that from happening. I say, you're welcome to text me homes. Okay, but based on what you just told me, you said you do not want your payment to be a dime more than $750 a month. Okay, so based on the loan program you just got done telling me you wanted, and based on where interest rates are today, okay, it's my job as a real estate agent. Okay, number one complaint against us is that we don't listen. I'm here to prove to you that I'm going to listen to you, because now we know that our max budget is $125,000. So you got my word. I'm not going to share one house with you that exceeds that budget, because I know how important that is to you. $750, that's it, not a dime more. So $125 is where we need to stay. So that being said, when you're online tonight, because I'm not going to stop them from going online, right? It's going to happen. They're going to do what they want to do. But here's the thing. Robert, you got to promise me this. You're not going to be texting me homes tonight at 148 saying, you know what, can we just see it? No, it doesn't work that way, because I'm going to respect what you're telling me as long as, in turn, now, if you want to go up in budget, that's cool, but you got to communicate that to me. Because now we're looking at a $150,000 house, now we're talking $1,000 a month. Okay, so same page, fair enough?
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so it's just a strategy to eliminate that, yeah, but let's go look at this, or but yeah, let's do this, and then you're chasing your tail. Okay, this is so important. So taking the time to learn how to qualify somebody and learning how to reverse a payment and translate that into a purchase price, there's tons of apps that do this. It is gold when you're working with a buyer of all price points. Okay. Plus, if they're unrealistic home buyer, which we'll get to here next, if they're unrealistic buyer because everybody wants a pool, they all want a one-level home that's 3,000 square foot with a basement for $250,000, right? Well, that doesn't exist. So I'm going to use this here in a little bit and show them that it doesn't exist. Okay. So here's where I talk about the house. Okay. My segue here is, all right, so now that we're done talking about the boring stuff, let's talk about something interesting here. Let's talk about your house. Okay. We've already established budget, okay, but as you're looking at this page, I know it looks like a bunch of stuff, but as you're looking at this page, what's most important to you? Okay, because we're all different people, we all have different priorities. For some people that I work with, schools are critical, okay? They're looking for, hey, what's up? What's up, Luke? So they're looking for a specific school system, okay? And then under no uncertain terms are they gonna take their kids out of this school system, right? So for that buyer, location's priority. Okay, for another buyer that maybe, you know what, we got to have this type of home, we've got to have a basement that fits a bunch of people, we need to have this great outdoor living space with a fire pit, because we always have guests over. Everybody comes over, got a big family, we need that space. So for that person, maybe they're willing to spend a little bit more to get that, because the style of that home is most important to them to fit their lifestyle. Or the third type, which is budget. Okay, a lot of times I've had people move from one side of town to another because they could get the house that they needed, I mean, for square footage, for lifestyle needs, for a specific price point. Okay, we all know that prices are most affected by location, location, location. So if I'm buying a home on the north side of Indianapolis, I take that same house, put it on the east side of Indianapolis, the price is going to be much different. Okay, so based on this, what's most important to you? Okay, and we spend some time talking about this. A lot of times we've talked about this on the phone already, but I want to anchor in stone what they're, what they have to have and what they're willing to bend on. Okay, so if they say, oh, you know what, we have to have a fence, we have pets, we have to have a fence. Got it. So, all right, so Luke, you do not want me to show you a house that does not have a fence. To which their reply is 100% of the time, well, if it's the perfect house. Okay. That's what I'm looking for here. I want to find out what they're willing to bend on and what they're not willing to bend on. Because if I set up a search like everybody else does, homes with a fence, fully fenced rear yard, guess what? That's going to dramatically limit my options. And they may be out driving around in an open house and then say to themselves, oh, this house is perfect. We could do that later. Okay, everybody says they can do that later. Okay, so we have to figure out what they're willing to bend and what they aren't willing to bend on. Okay, that's the objective. I'm going to push them to the point to where they say no. So another example of what that may look like. So, all right, so Robert, so you told me that you have to stay in Avon schools. Under no uncertain terms are you taking your kids outside of Avon schools, right? Let me ask you a question, just play along with me here. So let's say literally, you told me you need X, Y, and Z in a house. You told me that, A is your budget. But this house is in Plainfield Schools. It's literally across the road from where you're at, and it's in Plainfield Schools. Do you want me to share that home with you?
No.
Because I don't want you to miss out on an opportunity that could be a great one.
Right.
But you're telling me right now that you do not want me to share a home with you that's outside of the school district.
That's right.
Period. Got it. So that's what I've done. Now I've anchored that in, and I've eliminated them from texting me a home that is literally across town, or that is, you know, two miles, whatever it might be. So, and that way, guess what? We can always change these rules, but up front, this is what's so critical. Get that set in stone. And the most important thing here on this page when I'm going through it, or when I'm just standing around a kitchen aisle having a conversation with them, okay, I am not gonna, you know, break them down. I'm not gonna say, yeah, that doesn't exist. Okay, when they're saying I need a 1-level home in Carmel, the pool, 4 bedrooms, 3-car garage, oh yeah, and a finished basement for $250. Okay, I'm not gonna prove them wrong. I'm not gonna argue with them and say, yeah, that ain't gonna work. Okay, because every buyer's an unrealistic buyer until they either educate themselves or we help them become educated on what the reality of the market is. We're gonna go through that next. Okay, so this is so important to set in stone what they want and what they don't want. So that way, again, they're not sending you homes that are across town. They're not sending you homes that way exceed the budget of what they told you they wanted to be in, or they're not sending you 2-story homes when they said, yeah, but we can't do stairs anymore. You know, my parents are gonna be coming in to live with us, and we can't do stairs anymore, so we gotta have everything on 1 level. Okay, you're eliminating all that. And it's not hard to do, but you have to be willing to have this conversation. You have to be willing to tell them, look, I promise I'm gonna keep my word. Okay, number one complaint again is that we don't listen. I'm here to prove to you I'm gonna listen, because I'm not gonna send you homes that don't match. And that might mean there's nothing on the market today. That's cool, so I'm not gonna send you anything today. I'm still gonna do some research, see if I can find some alternative options, but I'm not gonna send you anything. But in turn, that means you're also not sending me anything. Fair? Unless you see something that I'm not sharing with you that meets your criteria. Are we clear? This is so important to do this. This is what eliminates the driving across town or them being out and about on a Sunday afternoon looking at open houses that are not at all what they said. You've prepared them for what to do next. They know what the rules of the game are now. So you're truly able to show people 3 to 5 homes, write a strong offer on the very first one, and it doesn't work 100% of the time, but more often than not, I'm only writing offers on 1 house, maybe 2 houses, because I've shown them what the market's doing. Okay, so we'll get to that next. Okay, I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on new homes. I definitely cover new homes with people, whether they like new homes or not. Okay, we get, you know, Andy here, obviously, I mean, I'm sure you've all heard, I don't want, you know, one of those vinyl villages where I can reach out and touch my neighbor, right? I cannot tell you how many of those people have bought new homes in vinyl villages where they can reach out and touch their neighbor, because the house works, okay? They just think that they want 2 acres, or they think that they want 1 acre. It takes a long time to mow 1 acre, okay? And so I'm gonna bring this up 100% of the time to people. If there's nothing that meets their criteria, if, you know, their budget's $80,000 and there's nothing that meets that criteria, I'm gonna just bring it up. Look, new homes are definitely an option. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of options in our price point right now, but if there are options in our price point, I'm gonna walk them in. Say, just humor me, walk me into the, you know, let's go check this one out just to see what you think, because you can sell 8 new homes in a month and do less work than selling 3 resale homes, because you don't deal with the inspections, the appraisal challenges. The sales counselor does it all for you. 8 new homes are a thing of beauty. Why more real estate agents don't dive into it, I will never know. Take the time and educate yourself on what's out there. Go build relationships with the new home sales counselors, because they will make your life infinitely easier. I just helped a guy buy a brand new home in Greenwood. He's building with Arbor Homes. I have not even gone to show him this house yet. I haven't walked through a model home with him yet. I went on a listing appointment, set him up with my buddy Matt. Matt's done all the work. I've still talked to him about it. I've probably got 45 minutes of phone time invested in it. But I live on the north side of Indy. I don't want to drive to the south side of Indy, right? It's a long ways. By having a solid relationship with a new home counselor that knows what they're doing, money in the bank. Matt's done all this work for me. I've just literally sent him over a text of what they want. And he's like, yeah, we got these 2 communities. Send them in. I got you down. It's money. So take the time to learn about new construction. Okay, I use bank-owned properties. We had an agent in the office. This is about 2 years ago. And he got a lead from the company. I got a lead from Zillow. And so we both, unbeknownst to us, were working the same lead, right? And in this situation, he literally told her why she didn't want to buy a foreclosure, okay? That's fine. I don't want to sell foreclosures more than anybody else does. They're a lot more work and they're a lot more trouble. But this lady thought she needed a HUD home because her dad had been in her ear for a long time that you need to buy a house, get some instant equity in it, and then sell it in 3 to 5 years when your lifestyle changes. That way you're in a good spot. She had this ingrained. So why am I going to argue with her dad, who she trusts and will always trust implicitly more than me, right? I can argue with that. So what I did is I went through and I'm like, all right, Nikki, so here's the deal. How familiar are you with the 6 different types of foreclosure properties out there? I talked to her about all the stuff that's going to go wrong with the foreclosure, about the hurdles, the hoops that she's going to have to jump through, the taking off work to go meet the utility company and paying the utility company to put the utilities in her name for her inspection, coordinating all that with the appraisal. I'm telling her how challenging this process is going to be, but if that's what you want, cool, 100% on board, I'm here to help. By the time we were done talking about it, she wanted nothing to do with it, but I let her decide for herself. I put up all these massive brick walls about how challenging this is going to be. This is a single lady with a young daughter that does not want a house with a bunch of problems. Because here's the thing, Luke, if you're buying a foreclosure home, when why does a home go into foreclosure? Role play with me. Why does a home go into foreclosure?
Default on your loan.
Yeah, so you quit making your payment, right?
Yeah.
And so what's one of the things that people probably quit doing long before they quit actually making that house payment?
Fixing it up.
Maintenance,
Taking care
right?
of your house.
Maintenance, because you ain't got the extra cash to spend on having your furnace cleaned and serviced, right? You got the extra cash to spend on having it painted. You don't have the extra cash to spend on fixing that leaking toilet upstairs, and now you've got stains right there and God knows what in between, right? Okay, so when you buy a foreclosure, you have to consider this. Yes, you might get a better deal up front, but at what cost 3 to 5 years down the road? I don't know, you decide. And by walking people through that, rather than telling them why they suck, I'm letting them come to their own conclusions. Thankfully, I've only sold 1 foreclosure in the last 2 years, okay? And it was not a smooth transaction, okay? It was not a fun experience, but we got it done. Okay? So that's my goal with this. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time talking to them about the differences because they're gonna forget anyway. I'm gonna share with them a few horror stories about all the hurdles they're gonna have to cross that my other clients have dealt with. Let them decide for themselves, okay? That's foreclosures. Then I'm gonna wrap the process up here. Okay, this is where I wrap it up. Whether I'm sitting down with somebody again or they've been down this process once before, it's still important that I set an expectation about what out-of-pocket expenses are gonna take place. Because if they bought a home 10 years ago, chances are they didn't have to write a check for their appraisal up front. Most lenders now require that you write a check for $500 to cover your appraisal before they do it, rather than rolling it into the closing costs on the back end. Okay? Nobody likes to write a check that they weren't planning on writing. So I just simply want to set that expectation. Okay? I want to make sure that they know that I'm here for you, I got this down, we're going to be good to go. So first step is to get approved. Why do we want to get approved first? So, all right, so Robert, let's say we're out looking at houses. Okay, you just got in telling me that you've seen houses are selling in hours. Your neighbor's house sold in like 3 days. Okay, so let me ask you a question. Let's say you're out looking at houses. You find that perfect house for you. Okay, you know that there's a bunch of other people that are also interested in this house. We call the agent while we're there. You're like, yeah, I really like this. He's like, yeah, we've got a few offers on it already, but go ahead and submit one. Let me ask you a question. How seriously do you think a seller is going to consider your offer when they've got one offer with a loan approval letter for full price that says we want to move in 30 days? You got offer B that's for an even better loan, a conventional loan, for full price that says we want to move in 30 days. And then we've got your offer for full price without approval letter that says we want to move in 30 days. Which offer as a seller is going to be more attractive to you?
Conventional.
This offer right here that says, yep, we really want your house, but I don't know if you can buy it. We don't know if we can buy it. Or the one that says, yes, we can buy it. Here's a letter that says we can buy it, and here's the best loan program that exists. Okay? I need to walk them through why it's important. Not telling them that we have to get you pre-approved because no seller is going to consider your offer, by telling them a story and helping them, again, discover for themselves why it's important to do that. And you just do that by walking them through an example like that versus telling them that you're right, they're wrong. Okay? Let the search begin. Now, this is where I stop. Okay? If I'm sitting down with somebody and they're the unrealistic buyer, and oftentimes they are, I'm going to stop right here. I'm going to say, you know what? Before we keep going here, before we wrap up, I need 3 more minutes. And I'm going to walk them through an MLS search. Okay, but rather than doing, and I always take my laptop with me, I got my hotspot, okay, and I'm gonna walk them through this search. And I'm gonna, instead of seeing what's available, I'm gonna say, all right, so Mike, let me ask you a question real quick. Hey, we're gonna go through and we're gonna see what other people are buying the same type of home that you wanna buy. What are they paying for it? Okay? How much time did they have to make a decision? What type of a discount did they get on it? So let's go through and see how many other people have bought the same type of home that you wanna buy here in the last 90 days or here in the last year. Or if it's an extreme example, I'll go 4 years back because I know it doesn't exist. And this is that webinar, I keep talking about. Gotta do this. So I take my laptop. Every single buyer I work with, I show them this. Even if they are a realistic home buyer, after I'm done with this, I'm still gonna show them because I need to anchor in what type of a discount's taking place in the market. Because right or wrong, everybody wants a good deal, right? Everybody wants a good deal. We have to help them discover what is a good deal in the marketplace today. Because if their definition of a good deal is I'm gonna get a 20% discount, meaning I'm gonna get a $100,000 house bought for 80, boy, we can go ahead and write 5 offers and hope they finally learn their lesson the hard way, or we can spend 3 minutes showing them that nobody has done that in the last year. So what makes you feel that you're gonna be able to? Okay, so I'm gonna walk them through that. We'll show you hear that in just a second. Okay, so I stop my search, I go through it right now if they're unrealistic, and I help them discover that what they want doesn't exist and that we need to adjust our criteria. Okay, I'll walk through that in a second. Okay, if they're good to go, I'm gonna keep going and I'll go through that exercise at the end. Okay, I'm gonna go through when we write a purchase agreement, how much is your deposit money or earnest money going to be? Again, set an expectation about where that needs to be, usually $1,000 to $3,000. Okay, I'm gonna go through an inspection. Okay, when do you order an inspection? Who pays for the inspection and what components are important to maybe upgrade and add to your inspection, such as a radon test, a wood destroying insect test, a septic test if it applies, or a sewer scope. Okay, if it's an older house like in Broadrupple or something. Okay, I want to make sure that they know what they need to be checking for, so that way 3 months after they move in and they have a problem, it doesn't come back on me. It's my job to communicate that. So that's going to cost you $350 to $600 at the time of the inspection. Then we're going to order your appraisal. Okay, unfortunately, the bank is not going to lend more money on this house than what it's worth. So congratulations, you get to write a check to help them discover that. Okay, so you get to write a check for $400, $500 to cover your appraisal once we're through the inspection process. Okay, homeowner's insurance. Okay, all lenders require that you be paid in advance 1 year on your homeowner's insurance. Why? Because if you're out in Florida vacationing, you forget to mail in your house payment, they're not going to let the possibility of a lapse of coverage take place. So they're going to make sure that you're paid in advance 1 year at all points in time. Then every time you make a monthly house payment, part of that payment is applied towards next year's insurance. And lastly, your loan costs. Depending on the type of loan that you're doing, you're going to have closing fees varying between about 2 and 4% of the purchase price of the home. So we just need to simply cover what is that. And if they don't have the money to pay those closing costs, I'm going to talk to them about doing a seller paid closing cost program, or doing a loan that's called premium pricing. Maybe they take a little bit higher interest rate and roll those closing costs into their loan that way. So there's a few different avenues depending on if they have the money to write a check to pay their closing fees or not. So this is what I have to cover with everybody. Okay, again, if you've been down this path 2 or 3 times, I don't need to go in all this detail. I got to cover that first page. I got to cover, again, what are the rules of the game? What's my role? What's your role? Okay, how do I get paid? We have to cover those things. But beyond that, I don't need to go into the rest of this stuff. I pull it out as I need it for a more educated and experienced home buyer. The financing, though, even on a client that has been down this path before. This is the client I helped last year. Okay, he was a veteran. He had moved 4 times in the last 6 years, right? And he's used a VA loan on 2 of those homes. He was planning on using a VA loan again because he's now buying a $375,000 house, still within VA requirements, and he wants to use his VA loan. Okay. And I asked him, I'm like, George, help me understand something. Are you familiar with what a VA loan means to you? Obviously, you know that it gets you in for no money down. You told me that you like the idea that you don't have to pay mortgage insurance. Are you familiar with what the fees associated with doing a VA loan for the 3rd time are? I was like, no, what do you mean? I was like, I'm glad you asked, because VA loan is going to cost you a little over 3% of the price of the home in a funding fee the 3rd time you use it. I think it's like 3.5%. I'm no math genius, but at 300,000, 3%, we're talking about 12 grand. You're rolling into the price of your home, so you're walking into that house 12 grand upside down day one. Does that sound like a good deal to you? He ended up doing a 5% down conventional loan. And that's where I hooked him though, because everybody else is saying the same thing. Cool, we need to get you pre-approved first. No, by asking him a question. Remember, great salespeople are defined by the questions they ask, not the statements they make. So by asking a good question in that situation, helping him realize that, wow, maybe I do need to look at some other options. That's the route he chose to go, and that's why he specifically told me I got the business, because I had a conversation. I helped him see something that he hadn't considered yet. Okay, we never know why we're going to get the business. So the more educated we are, the more problems we can help people solve, or the more opportunities we can place in front of them that they didn't know existed, cool, we win. That's our job as buyer's agents in today's market. It is not to email a list of houses to people, because they can do that on their own. Sometimes we have to get creative, sometimes we have to walk them through alternative options, but at the end of the day, that's what we do.